Sir, it's time. Thank you. Congressman Lewis, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. You have no idea how much this means to me and... Thank you, John Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anytime. You're welcome. Rosa, thank you for waiting. How are you? I'm good, Bob. Are you ready? I'm ready. Congressman, before you go, there's a message here. It's from Jim Lawson. March 26th, 1958. I was attending First Baptist Church in downtown Nashville. You could literally stand on the steps, throw a baseball, and hit the steps of the Tennessee State Capitol. A young man will be joining us this evening if you're interested. He'll be conducting a workshop on nonviolence here at First Baptist. His name is Jim Lawson. The congregation, led by Kelly Miller Smith, were Black Baptists who left the white church because they had been forced to worship in the balcony. I was one of the first volunteers to attend. Yes? It wasn't a very large meeting. I was the only student to go from my little school. There were young people like Diane Nash from Fisk University. Others came from Meharry Medical College and Tennessee State. At the time, Jim Lawson was a graduate student in the Divinity School at Vanderbilt. He also represented an organization called the Fellowship of Reconciliation, better known as FOR, a pacifist group committed to the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence. FOR had also published a popular comic book called Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story, which explained the basics of passive resistance and nonviolent action as tools for desegregation. I want to start working with young people, with students, high school, and college students. Jim talked about the Montgomery bus boycott, about war resistance, about nonviolence. He spoke of Gandhi, this little brown man from India using the way of nonviolence to free an entire nation of people, and how we could apply nonviolence, just as Dr. King did in Montgomery, all across America, South and North, to eradicate some of the evils we all faced. The evil of racism, the evil of poverty, the evil of war. Jim Lawson conveyed the urgency of developing our philosophy, our discipline, our understanding. His words liberated me. I thought, this is it. This is the way out. I told my classmates. I told two of my closest friends, Bernard Lafayette and James Bevel. I told everyone that they should come to this workshop. A few days later, we had another nonviolence workshop, this time with ministers and students from a number of different schools nearby. Bernard Lafayette was one of the first people to attend with me. We called each other names over and over again. In time, everyone plays the roles of protesters, the instigators, and the resistance. There may be a black person playing the role of a white person, or vice versa. We each tried to do everything we could to test ourselves, to break each other's spirits. We tried to dehumanize each other. Sometimes I couldn't help but smile, even laugh, when someone played such an unnatural role. But sometimes it was one of your friends calling you names, knocking you down, spitting on you. You okay, Charles? I don't think I can do it. I just can't. Maybe I can bring signs or make them. Maybe I can drive people to the site, but I can't take it. I can't be nonviolent. I cannot. For some, it was too much. But we needed to see how each of us would react under stress. Lawson taught us how to protect ourselves, how to disarm our attackers by connecting with their humanity. Maintain eye contact, John. How to protect each other, how to survive. But the hardest part to learn, to truly understand deep in your heart, was how to find love for your attacker. Do not let them shake your faith in nonviolence. Love them. We took a name, the Nashville Student Movement. Because of our distrust of centralized power, we instituted a rotating leadership. We were all in this together, and we were ready to act. Segregation at the downtown stores bothered us the most. We could shop there and pay the same prices as white customers, but we couldn't use the dressing rooms or sit at the lunch counter to eat. It was humiliating. So we decided the department store lunch counters would be our first target. November 28th, 1959. We started with test sit-ins to test the local store's policies, establishing that they would not serve an interracial or all-black group. Our plan was simple. Enter a store, ask to be served, and if, or when, we were refused, we would leave. I was nervous. We were all nervous. We each purchased something, establishing us as legitimate paying customers, and then sat down at the lunch counter for a bite to eat. I'm sorry, we can't serve you here. Part of our discipline was that only one person spoke for the group in action. On this day, we designated Diane. May we speak to the manager? I'm the manager. Look, it's store policy not to serve colored people here. What about the white students? Can they be served? No, I'm sorry. They're with you, so we can't serve them either. Thank you. No harsh words, no violence. No one even paid much attention as we left. When news of the student-led campaign spread, words of encouragement and support flowed in from around the country. We decided to stage our second test sit-in the following day, December 5th. Hold up. This time, I think they were expecting us. We don't serve colored people here. May I speak to the manager, please? I'm sorry. It's store policy not to serve you. Thank you. And so again, we left without incident. In January, following the winter break from school, our weekly workshop numbers swelled. We were close to ready, though no specific date had yet been set for our first sit-in. As fate, or the spirit of history, would have it, someone else made the move for us. On Monday, February 1st, 1960, in Greensboro, North Carolina, 4 freshmen from North Carolina A&T took seats at the downtown Woolworth's lunch counter. One of them had read the FOR comic about Dr. King in Montgomery, which got them talking about nonviolent action. I'm sorry, but it's against store policy to serve colored people. The next day, 19 students, black and white, had joined the original 4 at Woolworth's. By Wednesday, the number swelled to 85, and similar sit-ins had formed in Raleigh and Durham. A young North Carolina minister, Douglas Moore, was a friend of Jim Lawson and called to encourage us. They've been preparing. That's right. We've had 2. They're nearly ready. On February 7th, 1 week after the Greensboro sit-ins, we began ours. Washington, D.C., 8:57 a.m., January 20th, 2009. Okay, I've got to go. Do you all have everything? I think we're all set, Bob. Are you going to be warm enough? It was 19 degrees on our car's thermometer, and it's not even supposed to get above freezing today. Do you have a scarf? Gloves? I have gloves, and I think I have a hat somewhere, too. Here it is. Oh, you can't wear that hat. Why not? People need to see you. They need to see your face. Do you have a scarf? Maybe a different hat? No. Here, Congressman. Use this one. There, Bob, wear that. I can't take the young man's scarf. What's he going to wear? I'm going to be inside. I won't need it, sir. Seriously, take it. Thank you, brother. Okay, I'm going to wear the scarf, and I'll appreciate it, but you all really don't have to go through all this trouble. There was a half-foot of snow on the ground in Nashville the day we first sat in, and I survived that. 11 a.m., February 7th, 1960. Oh my God, here they are. Ma'am, may we be served? We don't serve your kind here. Is everyone okay? We sat in that eerie quiet for several hours. Fine, John. A little hard to read in the dark, but we're getting enough through the windows to make do. Eventually, the calm was broken. What is this? Go home. What are y'all even doing here? Get out of here. Y'all don't belong. But after a while, they wore themselves out and left. At about 6 that evening, word came that it was time to go. When we got back to the First Baptist Church, it was like New Year's Eve. The other teams at Cresses and McClellan's had been just as successful. That waitress was so scared, so nervous, she didn't know what to do. Her hands were shaking and she started dropping dishes right on the floor. You wouldn't believe it, Diane, when we went to use the ladies' room. Oh, they're everywhere. Our numbers swelled to over 200 students for our next sit-in on Thursday, February 18th. Again, the counter was closed. That afternoon, we stayed for hours without incident. 2 days later, we marched again. People were starting to notice. Here they come again. Where am I supposed to eat lunch? Go home, you're not welcome. Go back to Africa. That night, Jim Lawson asked to meet with the Central Committee. The store owners are asking for a moratorium on the sit-ins. They say they need some time to put together a proposal. So we agreed to wait. By the end of the week, we had heard nothing. So we decided that Saturday we should sit in again. Our numbers were multiplying so fast that hundreds of volunteers had not yet been trained in the way of nonviolence. So I wrote up a basic list of do's and don'ts to be distributed. Do not strike back or curse if abused. Laugh out. Hold conversations with floor walker. Leave your seat until your leader has given you permission to do so. Block entrances to stores outside or the aisles inside. Do. Show yourself friendly and courteous at all times. Sit straight, always face the counter. Report all serious incidents to your leader. Refer information seekers to your leader in a polite manner. Remember the teachings of Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. Love and nonviolence is the way. May God bless each of you. On the morning of February 27th, 1960, we gathered to hear Will Campbell, a white minister who'd been run out of Oxford, Mississippi, for playing ping pong with a black man. The day before, we'd gotten word from Nashville's chief of police that anyone involved in further protests would be arrested. There were also rumors of planned attacks by young whites, which the police did not intend to stop. So on this particular morning, Will Campbell had come to tell us what he had heard from his contacts in the white community. If you attempt to sit in, the business community, the local officials, and the authorities will all pull back. They will let police and the rough element in the white community come into the stores and beat you. But it is your decision. We knew we couldn't let the threat of violence stop us. We were going to sit in. My group targeted Woolworths. Go home. Go home. What's the matter, you chicken? No sooner did we take our seats at the upstairs counter than some young men began attacking the group downstairs. We immediately went down to join our brothers and sisters. Violence does beget violence, but the opposite is just as true. Fury spends itself pretty quickly when there's no fury facing it. The beating subsided. The group at Cress's faced humiliation. And McClellan's, Paul Laprad drew particular attention for being white. The police, conspicuously absent while we were beaten, arrived quickly after the mob wore themselves out. If you do not move from your seats and leave this establishment, you will be placed under arrest. I was not afraid. I felt free, liberated, like I had crossed over. We wanted to change America, to make it something different, something better. There were so many of us to arrest that as they drove us off to jail, we filled every paddy wagon the police had in Nashville. February 27th, 1960 was my first arrest. The first of many. We were jubilant as we filled the jail cells. Surrounded by so many of our friends, we felt like prisoners in a holy war. Back at the lunch counters, police could hardly keep up with the waves of students quickly filling the empty seats. No sooner would one group be arrested than another would take its place. 82 of us went to jail that day. The police wanted nothing more than to be rid of us, so they reduced the bail from $100 to $5 apiece. But it didn't matter. We weren't about to cooperate in any way with the system allowing the very discrimination we were protesting. It didn't take Nashville's powers that be long to realize it was impossible to force us to pay our way out. Around 11 p.m., we were all released. That Sunday morning, Fisk University President Dr. Stephen J. Wright addressed more than 1,000 students jammed into the university chapel. To the students who took part in yesterday's actions, I say to you, I stand with you. Nashville stands with you. Dr. Wright was the first black college president in the country to take such a stand. We were euphoric. The next day, we all went to court. 3 amazing lawyers came to our defense, refusing to charge even a dime. Z. Alexander Luby, an older man from the West Indies, was our lead attorney, and the first black man on Nashville City Council in 40 years. He had also worked with Thurgood Marshall. First off, y'all should know we're gonna be trying the defendants in groups of half a dozen or so. Your Honor, I object. Overruled. Your Honor, I must make a formal motion that the defendants be tried individually. They do have a right to a fair trial. Motion denied. So the trial proceeded. These young people were not disturbing the peace. Far from it. They were peaceful customers, fully compliant with the law, who were harassed and beaten. Oh, what's the use? Having heard all the evidence presented before me today, I find the defendants guilty and order them to pay a fine of $50 each or serve 30 days in the county workhouse. Your Honor, we feel that by paying these fines, we would be contributing to and supporting the injustices and immoral practices that have been performed in the arrest and conviction of the defendants. Thank you. Jail, no bail. Jail, no bail. Jail, no bail. When the city followed through with its workhouse routine, it prompted outrage from all over the country. Telegrams of support arrived from Ralph Bunche, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Harry Belafonte. At the same time, more students volunteered and the sit-ins continued. Much like Nashville itself, Mayor Ben West had a relatively progressive reputation on race. It did not, however, necessarily mean he was willing to risk his job and his reputation to help. But on March 3rd, Mayor West ordered our release. We left jail with a sense of triumph, and West also formed a biracial committee to study segregation in the city. In return, he asked us to temporarily halt our sit-ins while the committee worked, and we agreed. That same day, the chancellor and trustees of Vanderbilt University ordered the dean of the Divinity School to dismiss Jim Lawson. Cut off the head, the thinking went, and the body would fall. But for Vanderbilt, things didn't work out as planned. Instead, dozens of faculty and staff threatened to resign in protest, making national headlines. By the end of the month, we decided we'd waited long enough. So on Friday the 25th, more than 100 of us marched from First Baptist Church to 9 downtown stores. There were no arrests that day, but after Tennessee Governor Buford Ellington saw footage of the day's protest on national news, he was irate. These sit-ins are instigated by and staged for the convenience of the Columbia broadcast system. Quietly, almost invisibly, within the local churches, a black community boycott of all downtown stores began, what some people called a selective buying campaign. Would everyone in the congregation who has not spent any money downtown please stand? Hallelujah. Sir, you're the owner of this establishment. Can you tell us what business has been like? You could roll a bowling ball down Church Street and not hit anybody. On April 5th, those empty streets brought an offer from the mayor's committee. It proposed a system of partial integration, which was the same to us as partial segregation. But it was supported by 2 black committee members, Fisk President Wright and TSU President W.S. Davis. This felt like betrayal, and was more evidence of the differences between our generations. We saw that evidence the next time Thurgood Marshall spoke at Fisk. Look, once you've been arrested, you've made your point. If someone offers you to get out, man, get out. Thurgood Marshall was a good man, but listening to him speak convinced me, more than ever, that our revolt was as much against the traditional black leadership structure as it was against segregation and discrimination. 5 days after Marshall spoke, we resumed the sit-ins. The next weekend, Easter, a conference organized by Ella Baker of SCLC, was held at Shaw University in Raleigh. Baker asked Jim Lawson, whose message appealed to the young people listening, to give the keynote speech. The NAACP is too conservative. We must tap into our greatest resource, a people no longer the victims of racial evil, who can act in a disciplined manner to implement the Constitution. The weekend closed with the creation of a student-run group that would coordinate and organize the entire sit-in movement, and whatever lay beyond. That organization became known as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, which we simply pronounced as SNCC. Okay, I'm going now. Andrew will take you to the gathering point before going to your seats. You have everything? We'll be fine. You stay warm. You too. Let the spirit of history be our guide. April 19th, 1960. I was on my way out the door to our 6:30 a.m. Nashville Student Movement Central Committee meeting when the phone rang. Hello? Bernard! Bernard, we've got to go. They've bombed the Luby's house. Well, at 5:30 a.m., someone threw dynamite at the Luby's house from a passing car. The blast tore off the front of the house, and people are saying it shattered windows a block away. What about the Lubys? Are they okay? I think so. It looks like miraculously no one was injured. We can't let this intimidate us. We've got to do something, and it's got to be now. If we're to make ourselves heard, we must dramatize the situation, and we have to stand together. Our own government cannot allow this violence. We have to march. Agreed. Let's get the word out to our people and send a telegram to Mayor West. Let him know we're on our way to see him. By noon, thousands of people had gathered at Tennessee State to march on City Hall. Mayor West, we are outraged at this bombing. How can you allow this sort of behavior in Nashville? It's a miracle no one was killed. Mr. Vivian, let me say. No, I'll say. This has gone too far. Look, you all have the power to destroy this city, so let's not have any mobs. I will do everything I can to enforce the laws without prejudice, but I have no power to force restaurant owners to serve people they don't want to. We are all Christians together, so let us pray together. What about eating together? Mayor West, will you use the prestige of your office to appeal to the citizens to stop racial discrimination? I appeal to all citizens to end discrimination, to have no bigotry, no bias, no hatred. Do you mean that to include lunch counters? Little lady, I stopped segregation 7 years ago at the airport when I first took office, and there has been no trouble there since. Then, Mayor, do you recommend that the lunch counters be desegregated? Yes. That's up to the store managers, of course. The next evening, Dr. King arrived to speak. And at 3:15 p.m. on May 10th, 1960, those 6 downtown Nashville stores served food to black customers for the first time in the city's history. I came to Nashville not to bring inspiration, but to gain inspiration from the great movement that has taken place in this community. No lie can live forever. Let us not despair. The universe is with us. Walk together, children. Don't get weary.